Mr. Siminya.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Member Bena. Today we are to recall Mr. Kili for cross-examination by Sari.
Yes,
With your permission, I invite him to the witness stand.
thank you.
Again, Mr. Kili, good morning.
Good morning.
Give us your full names again.
My name is Dumisa Clement Kili.
You previously gave evidence before this commission, am I correct?
That's correct.
Do you swear that the further evidence you will give will be nothing else but the truth? And if you do, please raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
The witness is sworn in.
Thank you, Mr. Siminya. Mr. Brickhill.
Good morning, Chairperson, Commissioner. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And thank you for availing yourself for some further questions by us. We regret that we had to bring you back on a second occasion. But hopefully we won't detain you for too long. Just to check, you have before you your witness statement in the blue M&S file. I may take you to some parts of that statement as we move. And your statement begins from page 1 of that file. It's the first document.
Okay.
You have the statement?
Yes.
And you recall what you said there and your previous testimony?
Yes.
I want to start and really focus on the subject of TEA, temporary emergency accommodation. And let's start with the big picture. We know from you and other witnesses that there are 9 current TEA facilities. That's correct?
That's correct.
And those current facilities are all effectively full at the moment.
That's correct.
And in general, the conditions in at least 7 of those facilities are a matter of concern. You would agree?
Yes, I agree.
And there are 2 that are in relatively better condition, and those would be Fraser House and Albert Street.
That's correct.
Both of those 2 are managed by Joshco in terms of the service level agreement.
That's correct.
If I could take you then to your statement at page 1, para 2.2. You deal there with the conditions at Fraser House.
Yes.
And in 2.1, you record that the Commission, of course, has conducted an inspection at Fraser House on 15th of August last year. And in 2.2, you make the observation that from a visual inspection, Fraser House looked to be in better condition when compared to other TEAs inspected by the Commission in Region F. So you make that observation, correct?
Correct.
And you identify some of the features of Fraser House that are visibly better than the other TEAs in the subparagraphs of 2.2, including the furniture, presence of private security personnel manning the door, full and uninterrupted access to electricity, water, and operational communal kitchens, the general cleanliness of the building, apparent waste management controls, and up-to-date serviced fire equipment. You recall those observations that you made?
Yes.
Those are all important features of a TEA, you would agree?
Yes.
And if we take them one by one, I think furniture is obviously important for conditions of life, for a dignified life. You would agree?
Yes.
And the second, security is obviously a key concern of residents, but also of the city in these buildings.
That's correct.
And similarly, in relation to access to services, electricity, water, and operational kitchens, those are all vital for daily life of residents.
That's correct.
And in particular, where electricity and water are not present, the conditions in the building are likely to deteriorate. where there isn't a supply of electricity and water, the building will fall into worse condition. Would you agree?
I would partially agree to it.
Well, if there isn't water, it becomes very difficult to clean the building. You would agree?
Yes, I would agree on that one.
And if there isn't electricity, it's difficult to do a range of things, and it affects security and general life. You would agree?
Yes.
You talk also about the relative cleanliness of Fraser House in 2.2.4. And you also talk about waste management and serviced fire equipment. In Fraser House, and you identify this elsewhere in your statement, and perhaps let's take you there. Page 9, paragraph 3.33.
Yes.
It's really those two paragraphs, 3.32 and 3.33, where you talk about Fraser House and Albert Street being newer buildings acquired in the last 5 years from Joshco. And you refer to the SLA. We'll come back to that in a moment. And finally, you refer to, in 3.33, to the role of residents in the TEA facilities and how that has a bearing on the condition of the building. You recall that?
Yes, I do recall that.
Now, in Fraser House, there is an active residents committee.
That's correct.
The building is also, the residents are represented by SERI legally,
That's correct.
and the residents are organized by the Inner City Federation. You're aware of that?
Yes.
And that active residents committee plays a significant role in maintaining the building. You would agree?
Can you please clarify for me in terms when it comes to maintenance, on how are they playing a role?
So first of all, they engage with the city and with Joshco to raise concerns where one part of the building needs attention, that sort of thing.
Okay, that's correct.
And in relation to cleaning, the residents do the cleaning themselves.
That's correct.
So they organize themselves and conduct the cleaning of the building.
That one, it was an agreement between the city and the residents when we had our engagements.
Yes. So let's deal with those engagements. Over time, the residents have engaged with Joshco or with the city, including with you personally, regarding the building, correct?
That's correct.
And they met with you, as I understand, most recently in February 2025, so last month, the residents and a representative of SERI.
That's correct.
And they wanted to raise with you some concerns about the condition of the building, areas where they felt more attention was needed, correct?
Correct.
And they did have some concerns over cleaning, security, and overcrowding. Is that right?
That's correct.
And they raised those concerns with you in the building, and you discussed them and looked to find ways to move forward together to address those concerns.
That's correct.
And you would agree that all of those are important issues, the cleaning, the security, and overcrowding. It's important to address all of them.
Yes.
There was some concern among the residents that with these issues of cleaning, lack of security, and some overcrowding, the facilities may be at risk of deterioration. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
And would you agree that it's important, before there is any further deterioration, that those issues received focused attention, management, and adequate resources to address them?
I agree.
I want to take you now, if I may, to the previous, so the service level agreement with Joshco. It's one of the annexures to your statement, and it appears The document begins at page 13. It's DC2 to your statement.
Yes.
You have it?
Yes, I do have it.
So this was the service level agreement that ran until effectively the end of 2024, correct?
That's correct.
It has since expired and we now know been replaced by a new SLA, but this was the one that was in place until end of 2024, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the scope of the SLA in relation to TEAs, it covers the two TEAs that we've been talking about, Fraser House and Albert Street, correct?
That's correct.
It also refers to a third building in Claim Street as a TEA, but the evidence from Ms. Mutibe at Joshco was that it was incorrectly described as a TEA. That building is not a TEA. Would you agree?
I agree.
I beg your pardon. So the SLA covered the two TEAs, Fraser House and Albert Street only.
Yes, those are the only.
In terms of TEAs, it covers other buildings.
It's
but
only those two.
Thank you, sir. I want to deal with one aspect first, and we'll return to some others. If I can take you to pages 16 to 17 of the SLA. And in particular, paragraph 6, the scope of work. Do you have it?
Yes.
So to recall, this is a service level agreement in terms of which Joshco undertakes to perform certain tasks on behalf of the city, correct?
That's correct.
In relation to buildings that include Fraser House and Albert Street TEAs.
That's correct.
And the scope of that work is set out in paragraph 6 in the table, and it runs down to from paragraph 1 to paragraph 5 in that table. You see that?
Yes.
And in the first column reflects scope, and that includes things like tenant selection, facilities management, administration, care management, which relates only to TEA, and client services. You see that?
Yes.
The second column sets out tasks in relation to those themes or subjects, and the third column allocates responsibility, generally either to Joshco or the City of Johannesburg's Department of Housing, correct?
Correct.
I just wanted to touch on some of the aspects we've just been talking about. So in paragraph 2, the second row, facilities management, we see repairs and maintenance, maintenance plan, budgeting. That's a responsibility of both Joshco and the City of Johannesburg, correct?
That's correct.
And then utilities management, that falls to Joshco, correct?
That's
The
correct.
second item. Utilities payment is paid by Housing, City of Joburg.
That's correct.
Utilities repayment from merchant sellers, Joshco. And then we move to maintenance. Maintenance is to be conducted by Joshco, and rental collections are to be used for that purpose, correct?
Correct.
There's then an item on monthly reports on maintenance and utilities. I'll return to that in a moment. But the two items that I wanted to draw attention to are G and H at the top of page 17, cleaning and security. So to deal first with paragraph G, cleaning, that responsibility is allocated to Joshco, correct?
Yes, correct.
So Joshco has undertaken the obligation under the SLA for cleaning of the relevant facilities, including the two TEAs at Fraser House and Albert Street, correct?
Correct.
However, it appears to be that the residents are playing that function at the moment, and that Joshco is not discharging that function. What would you say to that?
My understanding is that when this SLA was drafted, I can't call if it was Josco or it was JPC at the time, that there were people within the facility which were employed to do with the cleaning. So I'm not sure what happened over the years in terms of that, because I know that some of them, they were appointed as security guards in the facilities close by. Yes.
So if I understand you, when the agreement was adopted, it was envisaged at that time that Joshco taking over from JPC would be responsible for cleaning, but that doesn't seem to have happened.
Yes.
And instead, the residents have stepped forward to take responsibility for that function themselves.
That's correct.
That has had its challenges, you would agree, for the residents,
Yes.
but they've done the best they could.
Yes.
So just dealing also with security, that responsibility is also allocated to Joshco. So Joshco ought to be responsible in terms of the agreement for securing those 2 TEAs, correct?
That's correct.
And to the extent that they fall short on that, they would be falling short of their obligations under the SLA. You would agree?
No. Can you repeat that for me regarding security?
If Joshco failed to take adequate measures in relation to security, they would be falling short of what is required under the SLA.
Oh, that's correct.
So if we step back for a moment, your evidence is that these 2 TEAs, Fraser House and Albert Street, are in relatively better condition. I think that's common cause. What I mean by that is that everyone here agrees with that factual position. I want to put it to you that one of the key factors in Fraser House being in a better condition is the active residence committee. You would agree?
Yes.
And a second important factor, one of the reasons why Fraser House is in relatively better condition, is that there has been regular engagement between that residence committee and the city and Joshco.
Yes.
And I want to put it to you that where there isn't that kind of engagement with residents, conditions in a TEA or another building are likely to deteriorate. You would agree?
Yes, I would agree.
Let's return then to the SLA. We've had the evidence from Ms. Mutebe, and she's provided the new SLA, which was concluded on 18 February 2025. That document appears at page 163.1 of the M&S bundle. You have the document, sir.
Yes.
So this SLA was concluded on 18 February 2025, correct? Sorry, the date appears at the end of the document, I believe.
That's correct.
I did just want to clarify one aspect. In your written statement, if we understood it correctly, you appeared to indicate that at the end of the previous SLA, the city might conclude an agreement with a different third party or take over the buildings itself. Was that contemplated at the time? To do something different than extending with Joshco?
Yes, there were those talks that the intention was that we were supposed to get a management company to look after our facilities.
And would that have been for the same buildings covered by the SLA or a broader scope of buildings?
It was a broader scope of work.
Okay. But the decision instead was taken to effectively renew the SLA with Joshco, correct? At least in relation to the buildings that it covers.
Yes.
And who would have taken that decision?
The decision is taken by senior management.
So would that be EXCO, the city manager,
It
head
would
of
be
department?
It would be the executive director, the acting executive director of human settlements, as there is no a director for public housing stock management.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Nkwana is currently acting in that position.
Yes, is acting as an executive director.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do you happen to know why it was decided to renew the SLA rather than going in a different direction? Is it issues of cost? Is it issues of the relationship with Joshco? Do you have any insight?
No.
Okay, let's come to the SLA itself. This renewed SLA runs until 2027, and it includes a budget allocation of 28.6 million rand. Correct?
Which page number are you reading from?
Just take you there. So if we first deal with the duration, that appears at 163.3, clause 4, at the foot of the page 4.1. You see that?
I'm getting there.
163.3 at the foot of the page.
Oh,
So the agreement runs until 31 October 2027, correct?
yes, that's correct, yes.
And let's just confirm the scope again of the facilities that are covered. That appears on 163.5, paragraph 6.2.
Yes.
And we will see again in terms of the TEAs, Fraser House and Albert Street appear. And we also have Claim Street reflected as a TEA, but Ms. Mutibe clarified and you agree that that is not a TEA, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the scope, it covers the same buildings, at least as far as the TEAs are concerned.
Yes,
Fraser House and Albert Street.
that's correct.
It doesn't cover the other 7 TEAs.
That's correct.
Chairperson, I just need to briefly take one instruction, if I may.
You may.
So I had put it to you that the total cost is in the region of 28.6 million. That is actually our calculation. If I take you to 163.5, so first of all, let me take you to 163.4, clause 5.1.
I'm there.
So the agreement there is that Joshco will be paid 1,800 Rand per unit per month, correct?
Correct.
And then if we go over the page to 6.2 and the facilities where we were just now, the third column there records the number of units in each building, correct?
Correct.
So we multiply that number of units by 1,800 Rand, then we reach a figure of 28.6 million Rand for the year for the management of those units.
So you took the 1,800, you timed it by the number of units.
Yes, and then multiply by 12.
Okay, okay. Not
You
clear.
agree with that method?
Yes, no, I agree with that method.
Yes. And we reach a figure of 28.6 million for the first year.
Okay.
You haven't checked that calculation yourself, but does it sound correct to you? Does it sound in the right ballpark?
No, no, it does.
Then if I may take you back to the previous SLA, could I take you to page 16 of the bundle?
I'm there.
And if we go to clause 5 of the agreement, funding and payments, the previous SLA dealt with it a little bit differently. As you'll see in 5.1, it provided COJ has made a budget provision for the management of the housing stock reflected in 6.2 for the 2021-2022 financial year in the amount of 7.5 million Rand, including VAT. So as we understand it, the allocation for that first year of the previous SLA was 7.5 million. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the new SLA beginning in 2025, the first year costing is significantly higher. It's almost 4 times the amount of the previous SLA from the 2021 year, correct?
Correct.
And presumably this allocation was increased because the previous costing of 7.5 million would have been inadequate now. It was realized that significantly more resources were required for 2025 to manage the facilities, correct?
Yeah, that's a possibility. If I may,
Please.
that if we go through the SLA, if you check under the scope of work and responsibilities, Joshua was supposed to be collecting rentals on some of the facilities. So my understanding that at the time, this 7.5 and over above what they would have collected, it would have been sufficient for them to be able to manage the facilities. However, maybe due to collection, it did not, the money at the time, it was not sufficient, hence why maybe a different method of allocating finance was used.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the City of Johannesburg then picks up that additional cost.
In terms of the new SLA,
Yes. Well, we saw there are still rentals expected, but the amount allocated by the City of Johannesburg is significantly more under the new SLA.
oh yes.
Okay, I wanted to deal with one other aspect. If we can go to page 19 of the SLA, and we can deal with the old SLA, but the same clause appears in the new one. We can go there too. Sorry, it's actually page 18.
18.
Clause 7, obligations of Joshco. You see that?
Yes.
And I wanted to take you to 7.5. One of Joshco's obligations is as follows: on a monthly basis, report to COJ Housing in writing on the status of the services rendered, as well as all operational challenges experienced and the solutions implemented to addressing the said challenges. So you see that obligation that Joshco had under the previous SLA.
Yes.
And I can put it to you that the new SLA contains the identical clause 7.5. If you want, we can go there, but that clause has been retained. If you want,
Yes, it's the same.
it's the same. You see that on 163.6.
Yes.
Yes. So my question to you is, did this happen? Did Joshco submit monthly reports on the managed facilities to the City of Johannesburg?
I wouldn't be sure on that one because the SLA was managed at the time by the acting director for stock management.
You've never seen such a report?
No.
Okay. Let's deal then with the other TEAs. We've seen that the SLA, both the previous one and the new one, only cover two of the TEAs, Fraser House and Albert Street. In terms of the other 7 TEAs, those are not currently managed by Joshco, correct?
Correct.
And they are not managed by another third party contracted by the city.
No.
To our understanding, there's no legal instrument, so SLA or other contract, that governs the management of those 7 TEAs. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those are then managed directly by the city.
That's correct.
And the city may contract to a service provider, for example, to fix a door or fix some aspect of the infrastructure, but it's the city itself that's responsible for managing those TEAs.
That's correct.
If I take you back to your statement at page 9, paragraph 3.31. There you say, in the last 5 years, there's been a high demand for TEAs, but unfortunately, the department had no buildings or capacity to manage the TEAs. Not dealing with new buildings for the moment, we've had evidence from Mr. Nkwana on that, on buildings that are in the pipeline, new TEA projects that are in the pipeline. I want to focus on that last part of your statement in 3.31, that the department had no capacity to manage the TEAs. By that, did you refer to human capacity in terms of staffing to actively manage aspects of the existing TEAs?
Yes, I was referring to that.
And would that also include financial resources to manage those TEAs?
Yes.
So at least in those respects, the city did not have enough people and did not have enough money allocated to manage at least the other 7 TEAs.
That's correct.
Are there any other aspects of capacity where you say there wasn't enough capacity? What else is required apart from people and money? Is there anything else that also needs to be added to the capacity to manage those TEAs?
No.
In your statement, you refer to the budget allocations for TEAs in 2022-23 and 2023-24, and you record that the budget was 15 million in 2022-23 and 11 million in 2023-24. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Those allocations, that may have been what it was decided could be allocated, but those allocations were not sufficient to adequately manage the TEAs, were they?
If I may, can I clarify this one? This allocated budget of 15 million and 11 million, it's a capex budget which is allocated for the entire region in terms of the T program that it's done by the city. And in terms of the operational budget that is referred to in the SLA is for the upkeep of the facilities. So there's two budget streams here. This one is a capital budget that is used to package TAs and acquire buildings. Yes.
So those funds are primarily for the development of new TEAs, the 15 million and the 11 million.
Yes, we use it for development, acquisition, as well as for the refurbishment.
Perhaps I can take you to page 5 of your statement. This is where you deal with these aspects. And it's there that you say in 3.13, TEAs are funded solely through the city's allocation for each financial year, which begins on 1 July of each year. And then in 3.14, for 2022-23, TEAs were allocated 15 million, and for 2023-24, they were allocated 11 million. You see that?
Yes.
And you described that, first of all, you described that the budget was drastically decreased between the two financial years, correct?
Correct.
Went down from 15 to 11.
Correct.
And then you described that included in this budget is what you've been describing now, packaging of TEAs and acquisition of properties for the purposes of TEAs and affordable rental stock, correct?
That's correct.
So that would effectively be either buying new buildings or repurposing existing buildings to serve as TEAs, correct?
Correct.
And then in the next two paragraphs, you deal with the budgets for refurbishments and then for repairs and maintenance, correct?
Correct.
So those are the line items for refurbishing existing buildings and for repairing and maintaining existing buildings.
Yes, all the buildings that the city has.
Yes.
Yes.
So these go beyond the TEAs, those two budget items. Sorry, the budget items in 3.15 and 3.16 of your statement. 5 million for refurbishments. You see that?
Yes.
So let's pause there and deal with that one. That is for refurbishing any buildings that the city may own?
That's correct.
So it would include TEAs, but also many other buildings.
That's correct.
Can you estimate the number of buildings that might be required to service?
Yeah, it's all age homes. There's about over 40 old age homes. There's existing stock of flats that has not been transferred. So it could be over 1,000 buildings citywide.
And those are the buildings that
And
you...
the-
please continue.
And there's hostels in that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so if we go to 3.16, there you refer to the budget for repairs and maintenance of properties under the city's management, and the budget for repairs and maintenance for Region F is 5,754,600 rand for the previous financial year. And you say that is intended to cover some of the buildings you've been describing now, flats, old age homes, TEAs.
Correct.
And is that budget, repairs and maintenance, also used for hostels? So hostels also included there?
Yes, they fall under this.
Yes. And you've given a rough estimate that it could be as many as 1,000 buildings that these two budgets need to cater for.
Correct.
And can we just deal with the difference between refurbishments and repairs and maintenance? Those are two different line items. Can you distinguish them for us?
Okay, repairs and maintenance, it's a day-to-day maintenance that if there's a best geyser, you do that. When you refurbish, it's a bigger project when you upgrade. It's either maybe you'd say that you'd be upgrading the stormwater pipe in the facility if it's not sufficient anymore, or you're gonna change the type of doors or window frames to new ones. That's the upgrading.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm with you. But in terms of the day-to-day management, there's a problem with the electricity wiring, some of the pipes are damaged, a door is broken, that would have to come out of repairs and maintenance.
That's correct.
Okay. And can we just return then to focus on the TEAs? And we've been referring to the 2 that are under the SLA and then the other 7. In terms of the 2 that are under the TEA, is there a separate budget line item for that SLA payment? In other words, are the repairs and maintenance of Fraser House and Albert Street covered by a budget line item for the SLA separate from this 5.75 million?
This one is a tough one for me to respond because finance, they are the ones who allocates the budget. But this 5.7, it covers everything that we have, all the stock that we have in the region. So I would assume that there's a budget set aside for the new SLA of 1.8 per unit to cater for all the units which are mentioned on the SLA. So the ones which are not on the SLA, they would have to fall under this budget.
Okay. So we haven't seen that separate budget line item, but we assume there's an allocation to pay the costs of the SLA and that repairs and maintenance of those 2 TEAs would be covered under that line item, correct?
Correct.
And then the other 7, any repairs and maintenance would have to be covered under this 5.75 million allocation.
That's correct.
And those TEAs would be competing with all of the old age homes, the flats that the city owns, hostels, all of the other buildings that also have to be catered for under that line item.
Correct.
And we dealt earlier with the fact that the other 7 TEAs are in poor condition and that the city lacks the capacity to adequately manage them, including adequate funding. So would you accept that this allocation of 5.75 million approximately for repairs and maintenance is currently inadequate?
Correct.
And in fact, if we look at the costing of the SLA, if we use the new SLA as a benchmark perhaps, 28.6 million for the facilities that it covers, the 2 TEAs and the other buildings that it covers. I want to suggest to you that this amount of 5.75 million may not even be enough for the repairs and maintenance of the 7 TEAs.
Correct.
Even before they have to compete with the flats, the old age homes, and the other buildings. You would agree?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to turn then to a different topic, which is the National Housing Code. And if I can take you to page 3 of your statement. So this is the section of your statement where you deal with applicable legislation and policies. And on page 3, you begin by identifying the National Housing Act in 3.4. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
And you refer to the National Housing Program for Housing Assistance in Emergency Housing Circumstances in terms of the Housing Act.
Correct.
And you discuss the National Housing Code from paragraph 3.5 onwards, correct?
Correct.
And the National Housing Code is adopted in terms of the National Housing Act, correct?
That's correct.
And it includes several different programs that make up the National Housing Code, correct?
Correct.
One of them is the upgrading of informal settlements program. You don't deal with that one here. You deal with part 3 of the National Housing Code, which is effectively the emergency housing program, correct?
Correct.
And you say in paragraph, you describe the purpose of this part of the National Housing Code. It's part 3 of the National Housing Code, which provides for the distribution of grants to municipalities, through which the program seeks to offer temporary assistance to individuals in both urban and rural areas experiencing emergencies. This assistance may take the form of safe access to land, basic municipal engineering services, or shelter in a variety of emergency situations involving exceptional housing needs. Correct?
Correct.
And in 3.6, you confirm that the courts have decided that emergency situations include evictions. Correct?
Correct.
Now, there had been some initial question about the scope of emergency under the emergency housing program. I'd like to take you now to the emergency housing program itself, the policy that you've described. And this will be in the SERI policy bundle. So it should be, my colleague will assist you. And if you can please go to page 327. Thank you. Do you have the document, sir?
Yes.
And you'll see from the cover page, it's the National Housing Code, Part 3, along the right-hand tab, Emergency Housing Program. Correct?
Correct.
This is the program that you were describing in your statement.
Correct.
And if I can take you then to page 342. And in your statement, you say that the courts have confirmed that emergency includes evictions. I just wanted to take you briefly to the definition of emergency and confirm the correctness of your statement in that respect. On page 342, do you have a definition of emergency housing circumstances?
Yes.
And in 2.3.1, under the heading First Application of the Program, there is definition of emergency housing circumstances. You see that?
Yes.
And the program provides, this program will apply to emergency housing situations of exceptional housing need, such situations being referred to as, quote, emergencies, unquote, as defined below. And then there are, runs from A to I, so there are 9 instances of what constitutes an emergency. You see that?
Yes, I see that.
And these include things, if we look at B for A, and A, for example, refers to states of disaster in terms of the Disaster Management Act, and B refers to occurrences such as floods, strong winds, rainstorms, fires. You see that?
Yes.
But the policy continues, and in C refers to dangerous conditions such as land being prone to dangerous flooding, land which is dolomitic, undermined at shallow depth, or prone to sinkholes, and to require emergency assistance. You see that?
Yes.
And then if we move on, we see in D, people who live in the way of engineering services or proposed services for water, sewerage, or power. You see that?
Yes, I see it.
But perhaps closer to what we're dealing with and what you were describing in your statement. E, people who are evicted or threatened with imminent eviction from land or from unsafe buildings, or situations where proactive steps ought to be taken to forestall such consequences. So those people are covered under an emergency, correct?
Correct.
And in F, people whose homes are demolished or threatened with imminent demolition, or situations where proactive steps ought to be taken to forestall such consequences. Those people are also covered.
Correct.
And G doesn't really apply. It refers to civil conflict or unrest. But H refers to people who live in conditions that pose immediate threats to life, health, and safety and require emergency assistance. So people who live in those conditions would be covered under an emergency, correct?
Correct.
And finally, I, people who are in a situation of exceptional housing need, which constitutes an emergency that can reasonably be addressed only by resettlement or other appropriate assistance in terms of this program. So those people in a situation of exceptional housing need are also covered under emergency, correct?
Correct.
Chairperson, I see that it's 11 a.m. I'm not sure when the Commission would seek to take its adjournment. I'm happy to continue.
We'll take an adjournment until 11:15. Mr. Brickhill.
Chairperson, Commissioner. Before the break, Mr. Thili, we were dealing with the emergency housing program and we looked at the definition of emergency and your own statement that confirms that the emergency housing program applies to situations of eviction.
Correct.
I want to move on to how the financial aspects of the emergency housing program work, and a newer development also that you describe in your statement. But let's begin with the emergency housing program itself. We were on page 342 of the SERI bundle. If I could take you to page 343.
Yes, I'm on page 343.
So first, in 2.4, the program deals with who will be assisted and describes the categories of people. And then in 2.5, funding arrangements. And it provides that funding for the implementation of national housing programs is allocated to provincial governments by the minister on an annual basis. Such funds are transferred to provinces in terms of the provisions of the Division of Revenue Act. Project and or specific program funding will be prioritized and reserved by PDs, that would be provincial departments, correct?
Correct.
From their annual funding allocation. So, and perhaps we can just continue to 2.5.2. Under the heading Project Funding, Project Application Assistance, if the municipality, based on its assessment of the emergency housing situation and its own resources, determines that the situation requires immediate or emergency assistance beyond its means for preparation of an application, the MEC may approve funds for project application purposes, and then it continues through progress payments to municipalities, and so on. So perhaps we can just pause there. The emergency housing program is a national program, correct?
Correct.
But funding for its implementation in terms of the EHP itself was paid to provinces, correct?
In terms of this document of the Housing Code, that's what it says. But if I may, through you, Chair, on my statement, there was, I did mention that as of the 1st of April in 2023, all those functions of providing emergency housing, it went back to the national government.
Yes, I'm with you. It's the directive of 2023 that you refer to.
Yes.
If I may, sir, I'll come to that directive in a moment, and if we can just deal with the situation before the directive in terms of the EHP itself. And perhaps just before we leave the EHP, to touch on one other aspect at page 345. Sorry, I think you didn't answer my previous question. You moved to the directive. We should just get it on record. Before the directive in 2023, the funding went from national to province to implement the EHP. Is that correct?
I don't have a response to that because I'm not directly involved in the budgeting allocations.
Let's then just touch on one other aspect in terms of what may be funded by the program on page 345. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Under subparagraph A, what may be funded by the program? You see that heading?
Yes.
And then there are items listed: assistance to municipalities to compile project applications, settlement planning, land surveying, temporary shelter or supply of materials for the construction thereof, including relocation assistance, and then after that, repair and or reconstruction of existing damaged formal housing, as well as related municipal engineering services where required. Can pause there. You see all of those items that the EHP can cover, can fund?
Yes.
Yes. And those would include some of the emergency situations that we were looking at in the definition. Those emergency situations would qualify for this sort of funding, correct?
Correct.
Let's come then to the national directive. And first of all, just before we move to 2023, it's our understanding that before 2023, the city had not applied for EHP funding
for the TEAs or so-called bad buildings or unsafe buildings in the inner city. Do you know whether that's so?
No, I don't have a response to that.
You don't know?
Yes.
Okay. If we touch then on the national directive, and you refer to that in your statement, sorry, I'll just find the reference for you. It's page 3, and you deal with this program under the heading National Housing Code from paragraphs 3.5 to 3.8. Are you with me?
Yes.
And we've already dealt with 3.5 and 3.6, what the program is meant to be directed at, that it includes evictions. And then you say that in 3.7, in Part B of the Code, the responsibilities of the municipalities, provincial and national governments are provided for, and amongst others, municipalities are responsible for the implementation of the program in collaboration with and under the supervision of the provincial department responsible for human settlements. The national department is also responsible for monitoring the implementation of the program, but shall also provide implementation assistance where necessary. So that position that you describe in 3.7 was the position until 2023 when the directive that you describe was issued. Is that correct? So municipalities were responsible for implementation in collaboration with the relevant provincial department, correct?
Correct.
We then come in 3.8 to the directive issued by the National Department of Human Settlements on 1 April 2023. And you say, in terms of the directive, the National Department of Human Settlements is now tasked with the implementation of the program.
Correct.
We are not in possession of that document. I've also checked with the city's legal representatives, and they're not currently in possession of the directive. Are you in possession of it? Have you seen it?
No, I'm not in possession of the letter. I was also informed.
Okay, so yes. This was based on, the position is based on what you were advised had happened.
Yes.
We are hoping to secure that document, and we will work with the city's representatives to secure it. But I want to ask you what you understand by the National Department having taken over or being tasked with the implementation of the program. What does that mean, and what does it mean for the city's role now?
Okay, my understanding that before that the city they would make applications to the National Department for the emergency housing grant. There's a form that needs to be filled in, it needs to be signed off by the city manager. Then it's sent to national. But now the process, it has changed because we've had fire incidents in the inner city whereby we're told that we need to inform national. National, they are the ones to come to wherever the incident occurred to come and make the assessment and determine what type of assistance the affected residents require.
And would the city retain an implementation role along with national, even after that directive?
No, what is happening these days that national, they would bring the material to the affected residents for them to rebuild their shacks, yes.
Okay. Now, we've seen that the EHP, yes, it does apply to fires and floods and those sorts of situations, but it also applies to evictions and unsafe buildings. So presumably this directive would mean that national would also need to respond to those situations.
I would assume so.
We will follow up on accessing that directive because it is significant, and we've never been able to obtain it ourselves. Although we've heard about it from other sources, not just yourself, sir. If I may then move to a different policy,
and that is the policy referred to as ICHIP. You mention it on page 5 of your statement. If we can go there, please. So under the heading, the Fraser House TEA, in 3.17, you say, during May 2017, the Mayoral Committee approved the Inner City Housing Implementation Plan, ICHIP, which aimed to provide good quality of life for citizens and maximize the human potential of all who live and work in it. And you attach an extract of ICHIP as DC1 to your statement. You recall that?
Yes.
There has been other detailed evidence, including from Dr. Zak, one of the expert witnesses on ICHIP and its development. But if I may take you to DC1, the extract that you attach, it appears at page 11. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an extract of the ICHIP action plan. And on page 11, really in the center of the page, there's a summary of the ICHIP housing delivery strategies, the 6 programs, starting with program 1, which is temporary emergency accommodation. Do you see that?
Yes.
So ICHIP included 6 substantive programs, and they're listed there. Program 1 is TEA. Program 2, subsidized municipal rental accommodation. Program 3, subsidized private rental rooms. Private 4, social rental housing. Program 5, private sector rental delivery enhancement. And Program 6, subsidized ownership accommodation. So those are the 6 programs developed in ICHIP, correct?
Correct.
Now, if we go back to your statement at page 5, where you introduce ICHIP, it's under the heading, the Fraser House TEA.
Yes.
And then in paragraph 3.18, immediately after attaching the extract from ICHIP, you return to describe Fraser House and the SLA with Joshco. You see that?
Yes.
So we would be correct to understand that the Fraser House development, which you say in 3.118 happened from 2018, took place in terms of ICHIP.
Correct.
ICHIP had been approved by the Mayoral Committee, as you say, in May 2017, the year before.
Correct.
And we've seen that one of the first of ICHIP's 6 programs is TEA, and so Fraser House would have been one step towards achieving ICHIP's TEA objectives, correct?
Correct.
Now, the evidence from Dr. Zak, and it appears in the text of ICHIP itself, the full document, is that the ICHIP set a target for TEA over 5 years of 1,500 new units to accommodate 7,500 people. And what you describe in your statement is simply Fraser House, which you may recall the number of units, it's around 100. It's recorded in the SLA. The city didn't meet the overall ICHIP target for TEA, did it, of 1,500 new units and 7,500 people?
No, that's correct.
The TEA portion of ICHIP was costed at 166 million over the 5 years. And you've given evidence on the budget allocations, at least in the last 2 years, the 15 million, the 11 million, and then the approximate 5 million amounts for refurbishment and repairs, but of 1,000 buildings. So I want to put it to you also that that 166 million was not allocated by the city for TEA during the period of ICHIP, was it?
ICHIP was formed before my time, before I joined the department.
Well, you've given evidence on how much was budgeted for TEAs. It fell short of the 166 million that ICHIP
Yes.
had. Yes. Are you aware of any report indicating, first of all, let's just say for TEA, of how far the city has reached in terms of those ICHIP targets of 1,500 new units to benefit 7,500 people and the expenditure on that. Are you aware of such a report?
I know that there is a T readiness report which was prepared by one of the directorates in the department.
We have had some evidence from Mr. Nkwana, as I said, about projects that are in the pipeline and how many units they are projected to develop, but those projects are not yet operational, correct?
Correct.
The ones that Fraser House was the new one that was brought online, and Albert Street also relatively new, correct?
Correct.
Then if we take ICHIP as a whole, and again this may be outside your knowledge, but the overall target across the 6 programs, the subsidized rental units, the TEA and so on, was to provide 9,500 new units to benefit approximately 35,560 people. That was ICHIP's big picture target for 5 years. My question is the same. Are you aware of how far the city reached in terms of that overall target, and any reports or data that would capture how far it reached?
No, I'm not aware in terms of how far they've reached in terms of delivering the 9,000 units that's referred on the ICHIP.
Would you dispute that the city fell short of that target again of 9,500 units?
Since the formulation of ICHIP,
Yes.
yes, I would agree.
You would agree that it fell
Yes.
short. It didn't meet that target.
That's correct.
If the city had reached that target, if the resources had been available and perhaps the pandemic had not happened, and those 9,500 units could have been provided to benefit 35,000 people, that would have made a material impact on the state of the inner city, wouldn't it?
On that one, I would say it would have improved the state of the inner city. But however, there's another element that, as you had mentioned, that if people are not transiting to independent living, it means that now what we're doing today, in 5 years' time, will be back where we moved from.
Yes.
Yes.
So part of ICHIP, TEA is one of the 6 programs,
Yes.
but the other 5 programs are directed at longer-term affordable housing in the inner city, correct?
Correct.
And so your point is that, well, all of that needed to be done, and there needed to be enough affordable housing in general. Otherwise, we'll still be in the same position with the TEA being full. Do I understand you?
Yes, that's correct.
If those 9,500 had been provided, though, including affordable rental housing, social housing, and the other programs that ICHIP proposes, I want to put it to you that that would have had a material impact on the prevalence of unsafe buildings in the inner city. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
And finally, while those objectives were not met during that period of ICHIP for a range of reasons, the objectives remain appropriate policy objectives for the city. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Chairperson, those are our questions for the witness.
Thank you, Mr. Brickhill. Mr. Siminya.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair, just a few questions of clarification. We all know ICHIP was never approved, correct?
No, ICHIP was approved by mayoral committee.
No, but you know you need council approval, and that's where I'm going. Am I right?
Oh, yes, that's correct.
And we know that it never was budgeted for, right? All those ICHIP suggestions about its implementation was never budgeted, am I right?
That's correct.
It must be. Now, as I say, I intend to be very brief with you. You have familiarized yourself with the terms of reference for this commission?
No.
You're not familiar? Okay. Might I just indicate that its primary purpose at this level is to inquire into the bed buildings, their prevalence, and possibly what recommendations can be made in relation to those. It never was intended, I put a proposition to you, to interrogate whether social housing policies and programs are adequate or not adequate. Would you comment, or you can't comment? It's fine.
Can you repeat that? I'm struggling to hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I'm speaking too soft today. I'm trying to delineate two elements. The one is the broader question about adequacy or otherwise of social housing by the city for the indigent and the low-income group people. That's one subject that I think belongs elsewhere. There is
Yes, Mr.
Perhaps I
Brickhill.
should let my learned friend finish the question before I stand up.
Yes, you may allow him to finish the question.
that is one category in which social affordable housing is catered for under a plethora of instruments, national, provincial, city. That's one category. I want to propose to you there is another category, which is what this commission is invited to inquire, make recommendations and factual findings. And that is the status and prevalence of bed buildings in Region F of the city. Am I making a distinction that is of consequence to you?
Yes, Mr. Brickhill, before you answer Mr. Quilly.
Chairperson, we accept that the scope of the terms of reference those are going to be important issues, but we would submit that there are more issues for argument. The witness is not particularly familiar with the terms of reference.
Yes, the witness will answer that, Mr. Brickhill.
What would be your answer? I'm just looking at two distinct scenarios. Would you be able to comment?
No, I'm not in a position to comment.
All right. The draft policy, City of Johannesburg temporary emergency accommodation provision, the draft policy, you mentioned it in your statement, don't you?
Yes, I did.
I want to interrogate for a short moment paragraph 17, which are the financial contribution. Under 17.1 of that paragraph 17.1, which would be page 17 of 27, I'll read it to you and you can ask questions about it. It says occupants will be expected to contribute financially towards the management and upkeep of the property through a cost recovery contribution unless a said occupant is deemed indigent or currently or temporarily unable to contribute through a determined needs assessment by the department. An addendum for the charges will be developed by Housing Finance and approved by Council. Did that happen?
No.
Was an audit or is an audit done in respect of these TEAs about the affordability of those who occupy them?
Yes, when people were allocated, the allocation rate was based on the occupancy audit that we did at the time.
Yeah, but okay.
Yes.
Continue. I'm saying it presupposes there will be an audit done to see whether or not the people are still in the bracket they were. Has that happened?
It has been done in some of the TAs, not Fraser House and 133 Albert. I have done an audit at MPV1.
I'm talking about Albert because these are the two that seem to be adequately managed according to all of us agreeing.
Okay, on these two buildings, we have not yet done the audit.
And that's why we have people with 5,000 rents a month income living there for free over 3 years. You see the impasse that creates.
Yes.
You, as a department, are the one responsible for the debt of 700 million that is owed to Josco, am I right?
I cannot respond to that question. I don't have a response to it.
No, you should. I mean, you don't know how much you owe people.
I don't know. Our finance, they deal with our books.
Well, I know they deal with your books, but you must have a clue at your level that you are not up to date with your obligations under the SLA to Josco. Am I right?
No, I do have a. You're right. I do have a clue.
Yes, and that clue must lead you to something in the order of 700,000, 700 million, which you can contradict coming from from Josco. Am I right?
That's correct.
You can't question that amount. Am I right? But that also tells us a very disturbing scenario. There is an SLA in terms of which Josco does work for your department. It is owed 700 million rent, which from this distance appears substantial. Would you agree it is substantial?
Yes, I agree.
And that SLA is not serving its purpose if you're not able to recover that type of, pay that type of money for the services rendered to your department by Josco. Am I right?
Through you, Chair, if I may respond, the debt which is owed, the 700 million debt which is owed is not based on this SLA. It includes other projects which are not mentioned in this SLA.
That's not how I understood the evidence from Josco. Include other services like what?
It speaks to its repairs and maintenance. This SLA, it only mentions a few facilities which are in the Region F. The city has facilities in all the 7 regions.
Yes.
Yes.
The SLA does not encompass everything you say that you asked Josco to do for you?
This SLA, it was meant for Region F. And some units in the Region C.
Oh, I see. What you're saying, there are many, many regions where there are other SLAs except this one.
I'm not sure
between
if-
your settlement, between human settlement and Josco. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
We're seeing half of the picture.
I beg yours?
We're seeing half of the picture because this SLAs, the 2025, the current one and the previous one, are only half of the story. There are other SLAs. You tell us.
Yes, what I'm saying that this SLA, it was to respond in relation to the questions asked in Region F. This SLA speaks to the projects in Region F.
I hear that,
Yes.
but I'm trying to make sure I am clear in my understanding. There are other SLAs other than the ones we have, where you engaged Josco to do work for Department of Human Settlement? Is that what you're saying?
There's a possibility that there are those SLAs.
From you, I don't want your opinion. I want your factual knowledge. Otherwise, I would have to fault whether your opinion is right or wrong, but you're not an expert.
Okay.
Are there SLAs between the two entities, Department of Human Settlement and JOSCO, for which JOSCO is doing work for the Department of Human Settlement outside these two SLAs we have been talking about?
I'm only aware, I'm only aware of the SLAs that apply to Region F, which is where I'm based.
No, but I thought your answer is don't look at 700 million as exclusive to these two SLAs. It is way beyond that. Now, what gives you confidence to say so?
Because maintenance is not done only in Region F, it's done in the other regions.
But it would be done through an SLA.
That's correct.
That's why I'm asking you, in your position as part of the executive, are you aware of other SLAs beyond, except this in Region F? Your answer is? No answer.
No, I don't have an answer, yes.
Okay, those are the questions we have for the witness, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Minya. Mr. Mnyandu, any re-examination?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Madam Commissioner. Chair, with your leave, there are a couple of questions I'd like to put to the witness just to
Yes.
clean the record, as it were. Mr. Kili, good morning to you.
Morning.
Mr. Kili, can I please ask that you turn to page 17 of your statement in the MNS bundle of statements? What appears on page 17 is the continuation of the SLA. Do you see?
Yes.
This is the SLA that we can now accept has expired, and there is a new SLA.
That's correct.
My learned friend, Mr. Brickell, took you to the top of the page that dealing with G in relation to the responsibilities, and in particular, cleaning. Do you remember?
Yes.
But prior being taken to the actual SLA, it had been put to you that the cleaning is actually done by the residents of the building.
Correct.
The record will keep us honest, but I understood and heard you to have said that you had been told or you knew that there was an agreement between the residents and the city. Was that correct?
Yes, when we had the engagements, we had agreed that the residents, they can do the cleaning of the facility.
Are you saying
as a return, as their contribution towards the upkeep of the facility?
was that in consultation with Joshko?
No, it was not in Josco. I was with, at the time, we had a meeting with the committee and a Senate representative.
All right. That's perfectly fine. Can I then ask that you turn the page over to page 18?
I'm on page 18 now.
And on page 18, there is, at the foot of the page, clause 7.5, which speaks to monthly reports that are meant to be done. Do you recall being questioned about the monthly reports?
Yes.
There was a question asked to you whether you had been provided with such reports, and you said no.
No.
But you then said they would be provided to a particular designation. Can you just clarify who would the reports be provided to?
The rules would have been provided to the acting director for stock management at the time.
Is there acting director for stock?
That position is vacant.
All right. Finally, and in relation to the the ICHIP policy document, We understood your evidence to have said that the I-chip was contemplated at the time before you joined the Department of Human Settlements. Was that correct?
That's correct.
All right. You can take it from me, Mr. Clearly. Evidence has been laid before the Commission, which has not been objected to or controverted by any other witness, that apart from just a mayoral committee, such a policy would have to go before council and there would have to be a resolution so that it's adopted by council.
That's correct.
Do you understand that?
Chair, these were issues that were explored with Mr. Nkwana. In the end, his evidence ultimately was that mayoral council approval was not required and that all that was required was notification of council. That was Mr. Nkwana's evidence as head of department.
What is your objection now?
What is being put to the witness is inconsistent with the evidence of the city's earlier witnesses. The evidence of the city's own witness.
I don't understand Mr. Nyandu to be going there, Mr. Brikil.
Chairperson, what I understood him to be putting was
I
that
think let's
council
allow
approval.
him to complete his question.
Chairperson,
Because you interjected before he completed his question.
apologize, Chair. I believe I had heard the complete question, but I may have
Yes.
interrupted your hearing. I would request, Chair, that the questions be put to the witness as non-leading questions. This is the city's own witness, and he shouldn't be led.
Mr. Nyandu?
Chairperson, the proposition first that we put to the witness was, and I'll do it again, Chair. Mr. Clearly, we understood your evidence to have been on the basis that I-chip is a policy document that was discussed, contemplated by the city prior to you having joined the Department of Human Settlements.
That's correct.
All right. Chairperson, that would be a leading question, but it's in relation to evidence that has been led and on his statement. Now, Mr. Clearly, to the extent that evidence has been led, that I-chip needed to have been and was not in fact adopted by council, do you have any position that would gainsay that would go against that version?
No.
Thank you. Chairperson, those are the questions we had for the witness.
Thank you, Mr. Nyandu. Yes, Mr. Siminya.
No, only after the witness has been
Yes.
excused.
Mr. Kili, we thank you for having come before this commission to give your evidence. You are now excused as a witness.
Thank you.
Mr. Siminya?
Chair, the formal proceedings will be adjourned until Wednesday due to non-availability of certain witnesses.
Yes. Wednesday is what date of the month?
2 April, I'm told,
Yes.
2025.
These
10 o'clock.
proceedings are adjourned until the 2nd of April, 2025 at 10 hours. We are adjourned.